Paul, thank you very much. Over to you.
Thank you, Lou. I do remember when you first came to Kunisaki. It's probably about 2009. Doesn't seem that long ago, but obviously a lot's gone on in the meantime. And good morning to everyone else. If you're in the Northern Hemisphere, in Japan, sort of region, Asia, it's morning, of course, and you may be in the evening in the United States or at some other time during the day elsewhere in the world. But I hope that you find this talk interesting. I think Kunisaki is wonderful, and I hope that comes through during this talk. Lou mentioned the community project, which is the main thrust of my talk today, but with relevance to our tours. So if you're just interested in Kunisaki, that's fine. If you're just interested in the community project, that's fine. And if you want to know more about the tours, well, I'll touch on those, and we can answer more questions about those, perhaps, if you have such questions to answer. And so moving on, beginning with our tours, and we have, last count, about 5, the Kunisaki Trek, Kunisaki Yufuin Walk, self-guided Kunisaki Wayfarer, that's a fairly recent tour, the Kunisaki Retreat, which is mind and body writ large, and we also do school tours here. And all of these tours visit, obviously, the Kunisaki Peninsula, and also included in that is time to a greater or lesser extent in amongst the community project, which in most instances means walking through it and meeting some of the people, local people that we work very closely with. So today's talk is about Kunisaki life, from my perspective in particular, but from the greater community perspective as well. The objectives of our community project, the origin of this project, the activities we undertake, the future is now, may make more sense when we get to that point, and ways to join in if you so inclined to do, some people do, and also if you want to join Walk Japan tours, we'll touch back on those a bit later. Very briefly, this is who I am. Many of you probably already realised, given my accent, I originate in the UK. I first came to Japan in 1987. This was in the bubble years. Perhaps many people have forgotten that Japan at one time was considered almost becoming the biggest economic power in the world, much to the chagrin of the United States at the time. Of course, it never came to pass, and now it's number 4, I believe, number 3, perhaps. 3, 4, vying with Germany on 4. I subsequently came as a student to improve my Japanese, and I had a career at the Nihon Keizai newspaper, Japan's premier economic newspaper. I became the managing director of Barracks Japan, a subsidiary of a big British company called St. Ives PLC, at the very tender age of about 30. Then I ended up in TV news and documentary, mainly for Japanese companies, particularly NHK, the BBC equivalent in Japan, public broadcaster, and not Turner Broadcasting, but Tokyo Broadcasting Service, one of the big commercial stations in Japan. And I joined Walk Japan as a tour leader in 1997. While I was doing my TV work, I used to work sort of part-time as a tour leader and freelance as a TV person. Moving on, I came to the Kunisaki Peninsula, and this is it, the picture to the right. About the same time, I became the CEO of MD at that time of Walk Japan. Lou subsequently became MD. And this is where Kunisaki Peninsula is. It's in the very west of Japan, on the island of Kyushu, and it's up in the top right-hand corner at the western end of the Seto Inland Sea. And this is it more closely. And the red box that's outlined is the area where I live and work, and where we have most of our land that we own or look after. That's plantations, agricultural land, etc., etc. But the Kunisaki Peninsula as a whole is the focus of our community project, and hopefully the meaning of that comes through during my talk. This is the sort of reasons I came to live here. It's a very beautiful, beautiful area. Largely, especially when I first arrived, largely overlooked by the rest of Japan. In fact, when it was first mentioned to me, I was like, where, who, what? I had no idea. I'd never heard of this place. And that's probably true. It's been largely true for many, many years since. It's changing somewhat in recent years, and I can perhaps touch on those reasons why. A few more pictures here. This gentleman on the left, just after this sculpture by Anthony Gormley, probably Britain's most prominent sculptor currently. You may have heard of Angel of the North, which is in Newcastle in north of England. Massive sculpture, which is by him, and many other works. Well, this is on Kunisaki, and I took that picture soon after it was erected, and that was about maybe getting on for 10 years ago. And then these sorts of scenes, and the picture on the right, if you look out across Kunisaki, you can see an island. That's Himeshima, delightful island, which is considered part of the peninsula environs, and the sea around it is the inland sea. So this whole thing attracted me to this area. The current state of Kunisaki, which is true of much of rural Japan, and indeed increasingly towns and perhaps some parts of some cities, including Tokyo, suffering declining population. It's an aging society, and there's a slow but increasing worsening of the sustainability of society. A good society is one which has people of all sorts of ages, fairly well balanced throughout. And of course, this is not peculiar to Japan. It's happening in many other countries. Italy is a good example. But it's true of China now, and many other ways, many other countries in different permutations, the same thing. To give you an idea of what's happening in Japan, it's had, I believe now, 10 years of declining population as a whole, and the last count was a decline of about 644,000 people in 2021. And each year that increase in decline of the population becomes greater. So this is sort of thing that is the background to what's happening in Kunisaki. It's not all bad, and hopefully some of the reasons for that will come clear as well as I talk through this. So what's it all about? And this is what we're about, I suppose, and our community project. So we're working with the local community to help revitalize, to give some punch, if you like, to the society, give it a bit more energy, hopefully allow it to move into the future in this little corner of Oita Prefecture, which is where Kunisaki is. And I think as much as anything else, we're providing an example or examples of what's possible. It's unusual to have, to put some perspective on that, many Japanese think that we're a travel company that does tours in Oita Prefecture, which is true. But what they can't quite fathom is actually we do tours throughout Japan, from Hokkaido in the far north to Okinawa in the far south, and many places in between. And that also from here, not just here, it's not our only office, we reach around the world to people. So by being in rural Japan doesn't mean to say that you're in a very limited physical arena. Actually, the arena, both in the on the internet and physically, is much greater than what many people in Japan might think is possible. So that gives us one example of we're showing them that although we're here in the countryside, we're doing all this sort of stuff, and it actually leads into our business and shows the potential of what's going to happen in the countryside. And some of these, again, some examples that other people are doing will appear here. And I think as much as anything else, it demonstrates our commitment to and skills in Japan. It's not easy just to set up in the countryside here and do what you want. To become a farmer normally means that you need to be recognized as a farmer, which is a bit of a chicken and egg situation if you're not born into a farming family or marry into it. We've managed to do that. I don't know quite how, but we managed to do it. It also shows that we're not, although we obviously are skilled in Japan, it's not just skin deep. It is, and this is just what we're doing in Kunisaki. There are other colleagues around Japan and overseas who are very skilled in many other areas of Japan and its culture and its society, etc., etc. And also, I think it marries our general responsibilities to wider society. Human, social, environmental issues are sometimes called corporate social responsibility, with our interests as a business. We don't see them as separate. We have a business which is to make profit. That's what business is about. We're not an NPO organization, non-profit organization, but we also have responsibility back to our society, particularly in Japan, which is in many ways, it's our host society. And this is, I mentioned corporate social responsibility in it, there's all these factors to it, and there's much more than this. But preserving natural and cultural resources, this is vital to our business. So if we can help in even a small way, that's important to us. Or reducing the seasonality of demand. So we try and spread our tours throughout the year. There's a limit to what you can do because of the weather, depending on the season here, but we try our best. Making tourism accessible to all. So that's anyone who comes to Japan, or indeed people who want to be in the business. Improving the quality of tourism and tourism jobs. This is vital to us. We're also very much a long-term company. We don't have short-term goals. We're planning for the future all the time. And there's all these. I can come back to those if anyone's interested in that. So I think what we're trying to do is created a virtuous circle. So we're investing in our time, energy, money into community project activities that helps improve the environment at the immediate level and energize society here. It helps the rural areas to become more vibrant, make them more attractive, not just in a physical sense, but as a place to go, as a place to socialize. We're humans, we're social animals, we need to share time and enjoy time with others. In most instances, probably a few people who are very good at meditating through their lives, but I'm sure they would also say that, yes, it's great to be with people. And it helps tourism development, sustainable tourism development, which comes back to the community project. So I think we have this created a virtuous circle on it, and this circle I know will grow and grow and grow in its entirety. This community project, I think it's just by happenstance, it's part of Walk Japan DNA. The gentleman on the right is Richard Irving. He's one of the two founders of Walk Japan back 30 years ago in 1992, and is Emeritus Professor of Policy Studies. And his main field of research for over 40 years was a village community in Kyoto Prefecture, not Kyoto City, but the prefecture, a big rural area. And as it happened, his research, which started in the early 70s, documented the decline of rural Japan, at least in that village. So on the academic side, you have a lot of information that Richard Irving has researched and published in many, many different papers and the like. And then Walk Japan's tours have been predicated on exploring rural Japan. We do go to Kyoto and Tokyo, but they're not the main thrust for us. For us, it's out in the countryside and reaching those parts of Japan that most other tour companies can't reach, although we now have many, many people who are copying what we do. So the origins of this project is because I came here in 2002 to live a rural life. From my teenage years, I always wanted to, at some time, I knew I wanted to go and live in the countryside and live off the land to a greater or lesser extent. This picture is my first home. I bought a piece of land, that's it. Doesn't look very impressive in this particular picture, but that's it. And erected my tent and lived there for a number of weeks or months, I can't remember exactly. And had a whale of a time. It was fantastic. A wild boar would come and visit me in the middle of the night, etc., etc. It's quite an adventure. I'd moved basically straight from London to a tent in the back of Beyond in Japan. And then starting work, which means clearing overgrown land. This top picture is actually something called menchiku, which is a type of bamboo. A flimsier version that doesn't grow quite so tall. And the land below is the first land that I bought, and this shows it on the way to becoming what is now a very, to my mind, a very, very pleasant environment, which I love going to, and sort of living in a very quiet space. I intended to build a little hut here for me to live in. It never came about, and the reasons for that will become apparent as we move on. My immediate neighbours, when I arrived, literally their land surrounds my little patch of land that I first bought, were Etchan and Mitaki-chan, husband and wife team. Unfortunately, Mitaki-chan died about 3 years ago, but Etchan we're great pals, and she has become a feature of our tours that visit Kunisaki. We visit her in our house and drink tea and chew the cud and enjoy her spirit. She's always warm, smiley, friendly, helpful, very thoughtful, bright lady, and is a great part of our tours that come here. And I used to help them out. They grow a lot of shiitake mushrooms. That's what's in the top picture. These are freshly picked, and they're still obviously raw. These would then normally be dried for sale. And the picture is me below in an excavator clearing the ditches around one of their paddy fields, which it would be impossible to do by hand. And so that's the beginning of our activities, and what we do is restore forests and cut grass, which is all part of this. And you can see me again with my digger, my excavator, moving timber that had just been cut down and left, and was it was a real mess. And this piece of land has now become very productive as a blueberry field, and we're now improving quite significantly the visual environment of that area. This is a sort of land that we took over. Obviously, the picture's set in the middle of winter, so it looks a bit dreary and gloomy. But this turns into this sort of thing once we work on it. And obviously, this is new leaf on the trees, which is a very nice time to be in Japan, this sort of time now. And we replant with a variety of different trees, some productive fruit producing, some just attractive in themselves, and some are very, very good for the greater environment, for not necessarily rewilding, but allowing a greater variety of flora and fauna to survive in the area. This lake and the surrounding, much of the surrounding, particularly lower areas, is actually a UNESCO heritage site. The whole of Kunisaki is, and it's representative of that in the sense there's Kunisaki has lots of man-made lakes and lots of kunugi type of oak forests, and the oak is used to grow shiitake mushrooms, and the lakes are used to retain water to flood paddy fields during the season, which is just starting. And these are very what's the word? Opulent environmental, symbiotic environmental environment, which is being considered so important that it's being registered under the Global Important Agricultural Heritage Site System. But a lot of the locals don't understand what it's about, so we've taken on the effort of improving a particular area that's been overlooked to allow them to sort of understand visually. They understand viscerally, but visually they don't necessarily understand. So we've been doing this, not just here, but this is one of the larger lakes that we look after. And of course, I mentioned rice planting, so this is what we do. A lot of hard work. The rice planting in the past, all done by hand, would have been a killer. I've done it once in my life, and I never intend to do it again. These wonderful machines do take all that hard graft out, and we can plant a lot of fields in one day using these machines. And there's a couple of fields that have been recently planted out. And of course, then it grows. This is just before harvest. And then we come in with equipment. Anybody who's in the field of agriculture will be laughing at the size of this equipment. It's quite tiny by European and particularly North American standards. But the fields here are that much smaller. The efficiencies are lower, but there are advantages to that. Maybe slightly, they're a bit more environmental friendly than larger fields. And we care for the countryside. We want to make it look elegant, make it, I mean, of course, there's a man-made element to this, but rather than, if it can be made to look more interesting, pleasing to the eye, not just in a artificial sense, but in a truly environmentally good sense, that's what we do. That sort of thing. And we cut a lot of grass. So we look after public spaces. The boy on the machine at the top is actually my eldest son. He helps out. He loves driving this tractor around. And the picture below is a is a park, which is below one of our offices in the village. And this is the sort of thing that we can turn it. The field at the bottom is actually a field at the bottom. Admittedly, the view is different, but the field at the bottom had been left fallow. We took it over, and we now grow rice on it. This was a field that needed to be rebuilt. It cost quite a lot of money, and we did that. Not the sort of thing most locals would do, because it's not a value proposition. It costs much more money to do this than growing any crop, unless it's something like something illegal, which in Japan is definitely not going to happen. It's just not going to make any money, so nobody does it. But we did it because we felt it was important to this, and also show to the locals that we're committed. Mention that shiitake mushrooms. This is the sort of thing that goes on. The ladies come in and help. The harvesting is very straightforward, not very hard work at all, but everything up to that point is hard work. But like rice growing, particularly in the old days, there's these logs. You see, these all move by hand, and the bigger ones can be very heavy. And the spores are introduced into the logs all by hand. So holes are drilled, and little plugs, like cork plugs, are knocked into the hole. In a normal season, well over 100,000 of these spores are knocked into holes. And this will be done over a period of about 2.5 to 3 months. Mostly all on a mountainside, maybe at an angle, inconvenient place to do this sort of work, but that's what has to be done. So we help out a lot with this. We cut down the trees that have to be cut down in the first place to prepare these logs. And we do organic market gardening. I have to say this has fallen into a slight abeyance since Corona reared its particular ugly head. We lost a number of our staff, not to Corona, but because they felt they wanted to move on to new pastures. And that's what they've done. But one of them, although one went to Tokyo, the other young gentleman has actually stayed in the area and continues to help out. And we refurbished buildings. This was the first major refurbishment we did. This particular structure, you can see it below. The picture below is how it was when we first bought it. And the picture above is literally, we floated the roof and rebuilt everything underneath. And this is what it is like today. A productive office. At its busiest, there would be anything up to 25 people working in this particular office. It's a bit unusual, but it's become a bit of an iconic structure for the company. And this is our first ever major office in Japan, and it was joined by others, which we'll touch on in a moment. And indeed, this is the second office we have in the area. This is how the structure looked when we first bought it, and some work underway, and it turned into this space. And again, we would have up to, when it's particularly busy, maybe 14 to 16 people working in this space. And this is, in fact, my wife's family home. And this is, again, another building which had been empty for a long time. We took it over, and it's now a very pleasant family home where we've raised 4 boys for our sons. And this is another structure which we renovated to be classrooms. We wanted to teach English to the locals, particularly local students, the elementary school, perhaps middle school as well, and to help our Japanese staff improve their English if they so wish to do. We had a lady, very experienced lady in the English teaching business, based in Hong Kong, Australian lady, and she was going to come out and help us out. And then Corona struck. So these structures, these spaces have yet to be used in earnest, but one day they will. And then we look for potential in the countryside. The top left picture is actually an old Torii gate, so a Shinto gate. This indicates it's a Shinto spiritually significant area. The only thing that remains of this particular area is the gate, and at the very top of the hill that runs up behind this gate is some Buddhist statuary. Buddhism and Shintoism melded in Kunisaki. And then there's empty structures. The gentleman walking through something, an old cow shed. We found uses for this. and then these old forests, which are very poorly looked after in most cases, again, because of declining and aging population, not enough people to look at the forests, and we go in there and help out where we can. Here's Echan again. We have a lot of our school tours come to this area. We have school tours in other parts of Japan, but the ones come to this area, they come in and help out. The students are planting blueberry bushes, and below preparing a paddy field for planting. And Echan is very popular with anyone who comes, especially with students. And there she is, making friends as usual. And she's really looking forward to everyone coming back again when we can start our tours. We also have a lot of visitors to come and see what we're up to. It is, I wouldn't say it's novel, but the scale that we're doing it at, and the breadth of different activities that we undertake is probably less usual. And we have students, local students come in, we have people who are interested in moving to the area coming and chatting to us, and we have TV crews coming in and interviewing myself and others, and also Echan. She's very popular. She's become quite well known in Japan because of these activities. It's all about community building. I believe our tours are the same. I know that many of our customers who join our tours find friendships. Some people have found marriages. They have a greater affinity with Japan and the Japanese, and this is a major part of what's important for us. So this sort of thing we get up to here, which reflects on what we hope we're doing with our tours, and we know we are doing to a greater or lesser extent with our tours. And here's some more things that are going on. This is, Lou mentioned he was in Japan recently. The top left picture is actually Lou. We had a party in his honor, barbecue. It doesn't look like there's many people there, but I think we had up to about 50 people came through the house that day. It was raining, but we still had the barbecue. Lou's actually playing the piano. He's a bit of a whiz on the ivories, and we're actually singing karaoke using an app. I think maybe YouTube on somebody's telephone there. And then we go off and climb. There's great walks in the area. Bottom left-hand picture is actually Yufuin, my favorite mountain in Japan. And my whole group of us go up there. We had, I think the youngest was anything, I think he was 3 years old who joined us on that particular trip. We bring something in that maybe would be uncommon in Japan, and here's some cricket. Anyone who has comes from the UK or Commonwealth countries will certainly know about cricket. And the bottom left picture is actually the mayor, who was a bit of a whiz actually with a bat. I think he'd been pretty good at baseball in his youth. It's true to say that our activities, as I mentioned earlier, are of interest to the Japanese at large. As I mentioned, we have TV crews. In fact, we have another one due as soon as we open our restart our tours in Kunisaki, hopefully in October this year. And there'll be a camera crew coming along to record that. But some people, Japanese in this instance, come to learn of our existence and our activities and decide that they want to move to the village. So a middle-aged couple who moved to the village and built this really beautiful cafe and wonderful food. We welcome all sorts of people to join us and help out. This is Tanya and Paul from Cape Town in South Africa. They have a wonderful hotel there. I haven't visited them there, but they've told me all about it and told me the story of how they created it. Beachfront hotel. But they found themselves stuck in Japan in the first year of the pandemic. South Africa closed its borders to everyone. They couldn't go home. They had to be here for skiing. They learned about us and said, do you mind if we come and hang out? And we'll help out. So they came and lived in our guest house, which we'll see in a moment. and spent a couple of months with us until the borders with South Africa opened, and we had a great time. They tended one of our vegetable patches, amongst other things. They jogged around the village and met people I hadn't met in the village, and would meet them, would see them every morning and wave at them and maybe chit chat and maybe give them a turnip and receive a beer in return or something like that. I had a great time with them. Very, very active people, and they're typical of people who come and join us. This is another couple, Roxy and Shimon. They came to Japan about a year ago with the intention of moving here. Shimon, the husband, his mother's actually Japanese, and that gives him the right, and his family the right to live in Japan as the son or daughter of a Japanese national. And so they decided to up sticks. He's from Sydney and she's from Melbourne. Up sticks, moved to Japan. They travelled through Japan, and to cut a long story short, they decided to live in Oita. So they came and stayed with us for about 3 to 4 months while they looked for their own place. And they found a place not far away where they have a small sort of farm, I guess. Farm's probably a big word for it. A little market garden where they're doing their thing, beginning to grow vegetables and the like, and fruit. Shimon is going to run a new bar in Oita City, the main town in the prefecture, and Roxy is actually a trained architect, but for the time being she's teaching English. But this couple of the sort of people who we hope more will come and join in the community, the immediate community or the more extended community geographically. This is a structure. I went out and actually took these pictures this morning. This is the old day care centre for the aged people in the village. It closed a couple of years back because our local municipal council almost went bust, and all sorts of things had to be shut. I think this is one of the sacrificial lambs after that. I'm not sure what happened to the people at the daycare centre, and there's still plenty of old people in the village, so I'm not sure what's happened to them. But a person who was actually born and brought up here, he moved off many years ago to go and work at Toyota. He was also a very bright guy. He worked in the engine design department, then quickly moved into sound engineering, and then he fulfilled his dream of establishing his own company at the age of 30, which he did in Tokyo. He's now just over 50, so 20 years ago. He's had a very successful career in IT, and he's moved back. I wouldn't say that he moved back because of us, but I know that what we do encourage them to move back. They have brought their business here, and in the old days care centre, they are creating an incubator centre. So representatives of different companies, in a sense of maybe different industries, come and share space here, and hopefully this becomes a sort of hotspot of activity and interest and new ideas and the like, which becomes very powerful in our immediate community and the wider area. The future is now. I think what I'm talking about in many senses is the future, and it's not pie in the sky. We're actually doing it. It's very practical, hands-on thing that we're doing. We have a guest house. Lou actually stayed here for the 2 weeks he was here, and Tanya and Paul stayed here. This is open to anybody to come, and whoever wants to hang out in the village, do their thing for a short period of time, a long period of time. We have many Japanese who come for a couple of days each time and hang out and just enjoy the area. Some of them may help out with us if they wish to. No pressure to do that at all. We have a beach house. The gentleman who's come back and is renovating the day care centre with his wife, they live here. It's not clear, but from that veranda, well, yes, you can see below. From the veranda, there's a great view of the inland sea, and just about make out an island and that's Himeshima, the island I mentioned earlier, a very beautiful, charming island, which is considered part of the peninsula's sort of geographical area. And this is one of our latest adventures. It's Walk Japan's 30th anniversary this year, as has been mentioned a couple of times already. 1992 was when Tom and Dick, Tom being the other colleague who created Walk Japan back in the day, started walking the Nakasendo. Since then, we've added another about 32, 34 tours to the Nakasendo Way tour we have. And to celebrate these 30 years, we bought this forest. It doesn't look too bad in this picture, but it's actually it was very overgrown. Left to its own devices, maybe in 250 years, it becomes a very nice forest, but I'm impatient. I can't wait 250 years. So we've been setting to and trying to create a more environmentally sustainable forest where the plantation that had been established, and you can see these sort of slightly sort of conical type trees, they're all plantation. All these trees are they're all the same DNA. It's left to its own devices, a bit of a desert. You can see in the background the same sort of forest. It's not, although it's green, it's not green in the greatest sense of the word at large. It doesn't sustain a greater ecological presence. And so what we're going to do with this piece of land is bring back a greater variety of trees. Hopefully that engenders a greater variety of flora and fauna in itself. And it becomes something which is recreation-wise, is more has a great appeal, has greater aesthetic appeal. It provides food, fruit trees, for example, provides fuel. We do have wood-burning stoves in my house and also in one of the offices, and other raw materials, and also help protect the water sources. All the water in this area comes from wells, so we need to look after the water that's below us. There's also carbon sequestration. It's something that, obviously, as a travel company, we have to be very keenly aware of. We want to we want to do it rather than paying for some plantation to be planted in some place in Africa or other part of Asia we have no connection with, other than providing the money. We want to be hands-on. So this is partly what all this effort is about. On this occasion, it's only 15,000 square meters, which isn't a lot. It's 3.7 acres approximately. But this is the beginning of something where we hope we can slowly buy more of the land around it and improve it. Already we're looking after land that connects with it, but we don't own. A land owned by HSM, for example, the lady I mentioned earlier. Carbon sequestration, by the way, is not just about growing trees, it's also about the soil. And soil can also absorb a lot of carbon if it's well looked after. The top left-hand picture is actually, there's a lot of timber lying around, which is not a problem for nature. It will deal with it over time. It will go back into the soil. But when it comes to looking after land, it's actually a bit of a problem. So we're slowly clearing it up. And then we stack it up into piles like this, which themselves will be very hotspots of ecology. All sorts of animals and fungus and lichens and insects will be able to live in these piles of wood. And there'll be different, within the wood, there'll be different temperatures and all sorts of things. So it'll be very, very, as I said, a great hotspot. The bottom left-hand picture gives an idea of what we're fighting. This is pretty thick stuff. This is actually menchiku, the sort of stuff I mentioned earlier, type of bamboo. But there's also bamboo, and bamboo can be quite torturous to get rid of. And then on the right, this is something we just found. It's a stone Buddhist related. It can't read anything on it anymore. It's probably painted on at one time. And the locals have forgotten about it. Nobody knew it was there. We found it in the forest that we bought. Be interesting to try and find out more about this particular stone. Oh, and I should mention, although this particular land, this forest is only 15,000 square meters, we actually own, that is, 150,000 square meters, so 37 acres of forest, natural and plantation. We look after more than that as well. We look after a lot of Echan's Kanugi forest, for example, which is quite a lot. Now, it's not a lot in the greater scheme of things, but it's something that we hope to continue growing and developing and looking after. As I mentioned, once again, 30th anniversary this year. So we create a Nengajo, New Year card each year, and this is this year's. And of course, it takes its theme of our forest. That's what that's meant to represent. And so this is the sort of thing that we're getting up to: agriculture, protecting the environment, socialization, i.e. creating a very pleasant, mutually supported, mutually helpful society, immediate and over a greater area. We look after forests, beautification, improving the attractiveness of the rural areas. We have immigration, people moving into the area, which is vital. We just need people. We provide employment. So in an area where employment is not so great, the opportunities that is, maybe agriculture, and that's it, but even in agriculture, it's not for everybody. So a lot of people might want to move to an area, but if there's no employment opportunities, it often leads to a lack of movement, if you like, a lack of fulfilling on the wish to do something. We build confidence. We're helping to build confidence. So the local people, when I first arrived, people say, why do you want to move here? They're proud of their area, but they wouldn't understand why a third party would want to move here. And I said, well, look, I've traveled around the world, done all sorts of, I met all sorts of famous people, interesting people through my TV work and this, that, and the other. But I moved here. What does that tell you? And still, it wouldn't calculate. They couldn't understand why anyone would want to live here. I don't hear that conversation anymore. And it's not just about our activities. It's about other people doing interesting things here as well. Improving the attractiveness for people to come here. I suppose our tours do that. And just these activities I've been discussing, not for everybody, but it certainly maybe is attractive to some people. And education. So the English teaching is not the only thing. It's the idea of technology. We do drone. We also fly drones, and we want the younger people, particularly, to be interested in this and help them maybe in future find employment in some fashion. And so our tourism and rural development are very much hand in hand as far as we're concerned. Ways to join in for anybody who's particularly interested. Stay as long or as little as you like. We have free accommodation in the share house, which is something I haven't mentioned. This is where Roxanne and Shimon stayed for 3 months. We also have the guest house, which is usually charged for that. And if you wish to do 2 or 3 hours or 0, just up to you. Just enjoy, just hang out or work out. It's entirely up to the individuals who come. Task dependent on season and weather, of course. We do have a car for people to use if they have an international driver's license, little 4-wheel drive vehicle. And we try to be as accommodating as possible in many ways. We'll do all sorts of stuff. That's actually, those disembodied legs are mine, and I build stone walls. That's one example of what I go up to. So January, March, so you take log preparation, tending vegetable garden, forestry work, etc., etc., etc. Sansai is commonly referred to as mountain vegetables. It's wild vegetables, I guess, and that's very important in the spring for those who wish to clearing trails. And then we get on to rice, preparing for the rice, driving tractors, etc., etc. Looking after harvesting the shiitake, preparing the shiitake, digging out bamboo shoots, etc. July, September, weeding paddy fields and tending vegetables, mulberries, well, a lot of fruit to be harvested, and grass cutting like there's no tomorrow. And then we, in the late autumn, early winter, it's a nice time of year, particularly because the ripe harvest is in. We have a lot of kobosu and yuzu citrus fruits. We make marmalade, particularly from the yuzu. A little less grass cutting, more vegetable tending, etc., etc., etc. And we have a community vegetable patch, Echan Sayang, and this is a great place for everyone to enjoy each other's company while they grow vegetables, get their hands dirty, grow vegetables, and then enjoy the fruits of their labours some weeks or months afterwards. And so community, this top picture is actually the garden, if that's the right way to describe it, of a Walk Japan colleague of ours, a tour leader who moved back to the area, originally from Oita City, not Kunisaki, moved to Kunisaki, where he and his wife took on an empty building, which had once been accommodation, and they've made their own living quarters there and also reopened it as accommodation for visitors. And literally, this is a view from their house. I mean, just extraordinary, beautiful area. And you'd have to ask him whether we encouraged him to move back. I don't know. I never asked him. But certainly having him back here with his family in the area doing his activities is great. We have another colleague who has moved to this area some years ago, but has renovated a very big house and lives there with his family. And his wife has her own essential oils business from there. And the couple below with my wife, they're taking a lot of foster children, being very successful in that area. Already one of their foster children has become a pilot for the jet pilot for the Japan Self-Defense Forces. Another one is doing space engineering at a university in Hokkaido. Well, they keep taking on children, so we help out by providing them with rice, some of the rice that we grow. I think we've already provided them with 4 of those bags this year, and they're 30 kilograms each, so 120 kilograms of rice. We'll probably be taking another 60 kilograms to them soon. And as I mentioned, back to Walk Japan's tours in Kunisaki, those people might go, I don't want anything to do with that. Fine, I just want to walk, that's fine. You can walk through the community project on all our tours, the Kunisaki Trek, Kunisaki Yufuin Walk, self-guided Kunisaki Wayfarer is an add-on if you wish to join it after doing the self-guided walk. Kunisaki Retreat, which is mind and body, lots of meditation, even healthier food, strolls, massage and things like that, and our school tours, of course. All of these visit the community project. So hopefully this has not bored you. You thought this was well worth your time to listen to me witter on. This gentleman here is an American who actually looks like he has a business in called Akiya and Inaka, which means empty houses and the countryside, and he's encouraging as many people to move to empty properties around Japan. I think the last census is 5 years ago, there are 8 million empty properties in Japan. That means from the countryside to the center of Tokyo, wanting people to use them in some fashion or other. And it's a great opportunity, although there's a downside to declining population, aging population, the great opportunities in Japan, which aren't necessarily, certainly not open in the UK, where everything's expensive. Here, you can pick up properties for peanuts often and set up and enjoy life. Yeah, so we enjoy doing this. We enjoy our tours and we enjoy the community project and everything goes on about that. So any questions? Over to you, Lou.